Let me just connect my AirPods. Gonna make this video on the fly right now because feeling inspired, let's say. I was just on a call and what I learned about client acquisition is very interesting. So I run my business in geospatial, and in marketing we're geospatial in by definition, or like in particular. Let's say we have, I don't know why these shapes are not coming out nicely. Hold up. Let's copy one of these. There we go. Client acquisition. Obviously one of the most important things in business. You want to acquire clients, that way you can extract capital from the market. But there's multiple ways in which you can make your client an offer that actually converts and scales, right? And what's very interesting is that there's only very few people who have managed to figure this out and realize this. Of course, within business and as any type of service provider, which is most business really, if you really boil it down, we have three ways in which we can acquire a client on an offer. So we have done for you offers, done with you offers, and do it yourself things. Let's actually swap that around just for clarity's purpose. DIY, done with you, done for you. And what's interesting about these offers is that you actually can sell in all of them. You can make money in all of them. That doesn't mean you have to necessarily at all stages of business. Personally, I'm not at a stage where I am even trying to make money off of all of them, but I am trying to grow in all of them. That way, since I am more or less for free offering information, DIY, people can then be converted into a done with you or a done for you offer. And that's the interesting part. So let's come up with an example. Case study could be Alex Hermosi. Alex Hermosi is a business consultant essentially, but he's doing it across all of these levels. And there's many people who are working with him, learned from him across these different levels as well. So before I show you his six-pack left and right, Alex Hermosi, first generation Iranian American entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist. Okay, he started out as a gym. It worked out, but later down the line it did not work out anymore. So within 3 years he successfully scaled to 6 locations. He then sold his locations to transition to the turnaround business. From there he spent 2 years turning 32 plus brick and mortar businesses around using the same model that made his privately owned location successful. What it doesn't say in here is that there's been some stuff on the road, like some issues there. It's a nice integration, by the way. So here you actually see it already. So this is a done for you service, right? And well, first he started his brick and mortar business, which was a DIY service because he had a gym. So, well, you cannot do a done for you gym session or to grow somebody else's muscles. So he had a gym, DIY. And I'll trace back on how this makes sense for the software niche, but bear with me. Now he runs workshops, and he's also made other people's locations, brick and mortar businesses successful, right? Also gyms, by the way, for the most part, I think. Transitions, you can read the entire thing on his website. It has all cool, but basically comes down to some things in a done for you service, running people's ads, growing their business, growing their local brick and mortar business, gym. He's done things in the done with you service. He's been doing cohorts, and he's still doing that, right? This is where he makes a lot of his money. 50 million plus. Run rate, at least. I'm not sure if he sustains that, but 50 million plus run rate on just the done with you, right? And there's done for you where he's acquiring the businesses, hence the name acquisition.com, which is about client acquisition, but also acquiring businesses. So he acquires businesses that he scales. And then here you can see again, he's good at marketing. There we have at the another pop-up. Scaling workshop, done with you. Lead generation course, do it yourself. Offer creation course, do it yourself. Same thing, scaling course, do it yourself. So he's generating revenue across all of these levels. Now these books, they are free, or the courses are free, the books are paid. So he's making some money on the DIY side. He's making quite a lot of money on the done with you side, like consulting. And he's making some money on the done for you side. Now, why does this matter? Because, well, he made a lot of money, like, this is why it matters, 250 million plus in annual revenue. That's why it matters. Now, sure, you can scale a software business on just a DIY offer and make it work. That's true, but your total addressable market has to be 1 billion users, whatever, right? Like ChatGPT, for example, OpenAI, for the most part, they're doing DIY. I'm not even entirely sure if they are spread across the done with you and done for you, but most businesses in our niche of software are not just going to do DIY only. And even if they do, there's a lot of money to be made in these other components too. That being said though, because for example, actually with OpenAI, they do acquire businesses, right? They do acquire other businesses. Sometimes I think to an extent they also get acquired here and there, but they acquire other businesses to help them scale or essentially generate revenue, generate the founder's revenue. Done with you, they do build and release to an extent, because I think they do help enterprise clients with probably like a little bit of an onboarding. They may charge markup on that, I don't know, truthfully. And there's research, right? They have a research and development department. It's also done with you because essentially they're helping the businesses that have acquired OpenAI, which I believe Microsoft has a stake in it at least. I don't think that's fully public yet or fully confirmed, but I believe so. And otherwise it will happen, or Google will, Apple, I don't know, like somebody will. There's a done with you component to that, because obviously they are not just training AI or large language models just to sell a DIY solution. Like, they're also going to use that information they get from basically the entire world to deliver done with you solutions to businesses, because, well, you can sell a 20 per month subscription to 1 billion users, roughly, maybe even 2 billion is their total addressable market for that. But you can also sell done with you services on many different ways. Like, there's so many ways in which you can apply ChatGPT. Like, you can imagine done with you could be like helping satellite company create a new revenue stream by combining the large language model with satellite data and object vision, something along those lines, right? That's another way to generate them more revenue. But what's interesting is the model, like the fact that you can combine these models and generate revenue in each of them. But what's especially relevant is that you shouldn't put all of your chips in one of them. Now, that's not to say that I am perfectly aligned with this. I'm still building my business from scratch. But what's interesting is that you can actually, even if you're just complete beginner, completely new in the market, or you have like a somewhat established software company, you can just sell the software or just sell the data and say to people like, hey, cool, here's how you do it, and maybe you have some sort of documentation or a course. That's great, but you can monetize that part too if you haven't. If you have monetized that part alone, let's say like many software as a service solutions are DIY, you can go to businesses and offer them some type of onboarding, some type of service delivery, some type of help, right, with the implementation and with the learning curve. And what you'll have to find is, for example, like say I sell a GIS solution to a housing corporation. They may use it for like their asset management. You can do a done with you with that housing corporation, because, well, if your solution is really good, like sure, they can DIY it and they may figure out, but they'll have to check your documentation. There is a learning curve involved with checking the documentation and then making everything work from there. Whereas you could actually generate significantly more revenue by not just going into the DIY route, but going into the done with you route, or combining the two, right? Selling this as a retainer by initially doing the onboarding or initially doing the implementation. So this is build and release essentially, right? You build the asset management solution to their exact needs. And you could even say like, hey, we will manage the entire thing for you. We'll just have like a Slack or Discord channel, and whenever you have a new layer, new data set, new map, new houses, we can draw it in for you. We'll take care of that entire thing for you. We'll handle the maintenance requests, whatever, right? Like, do you want to do that as a software provider? Maybe not, but maybe you'll acquire a different business who can do that, or you'll acquire talent who can do that. So you can still generate that revenue if you're in the vertical, in this case of housing corporations. That being said though, done with you, this is interesting because for these housing corporations, some of them will actually be interested in this, some of them will not be interested in that at all, and they'll just be interested in this only. But it depends on their level of portfolio, right? Like, do they have a large portfolio, and maybe they can actually acquire like data scientists in-house? They'll just need your software only. They probably don't want to build software, but maybe some of them actually do, and you can just provide an SDK, like a software development kit, DIY. So you'll still sell that, you'll still make revenue off of that, like month over month MRR, maybe off the API you sell, whatever that be. But there's also obviously clients that are going to be smaller housing corporations, but maybe they have the capital to invest, or at least the margins to invest into somebody on your team or in one of the smaller businesses maybe you've acquired, to do the work for them in terms of handling maintenance requests, or in terms of maybe even doing the maintenance, right? So there's a lot of things you can do there. I mean, I'm not sure if you should actually do the maintenance for them, but it could make sense. But handling the requests, like a support ticket system, putting somebody on there as the support agent, maybe using an AI agent even, can be a very lucrative additional way to diversify your income. Done with, you can just be the build and release, right? Like, you just build the software, tie it to their needs, train all of the people within the housing corporation to understand the entire process from A to Z, and boom, they'll understand every little step that they need to take to make the asset management tool throughout the entire process work, right? But it depends on who they have in their team. Do they have a small team? Maybe done for you makes sense. Do they have like a large team with data scientists and people who can actually custom build APIs on top of your platform? Maybe you want to offer a DIY. Point is, you want to do all of them, or at least be able to provide all of them over time. What's going to make you most money on the front end? Probably the done with you thing, and the done for you thing, but you need to have some type of front end where you collect cash up front, because you don't want to have people, like, unless you're like a core software provider, you probably don't want to have people build APIs on top of your platform without actually paying you an upfront fee, because it may not be great for the testimonials, right, or for the level of service that they feel like they have been provided, unless your API is like perfect and there's tutorials out there for that. Then maybe it would make sense. The way I do this, maybe that's interesting, because I would say, like, for Alex Ramosi, he's a great case study. Esri is a great case study. Let's go over Esri first, actually. Esri, GIS company. To be honest, if you watch this video and you followed my videos for a while, you'll probably know, like, Esri.com. GIS software for mapping and spatial analytics. I mean, usually it's pretty obvious. Now they do a lot with geospatial AI, because, well, that's the trend, right? And they know all of this. Who uses Esri technology? Electric Authority of Cyprus, Southern California. They have their testimonials. Nice. Point being, they are also across this entire value stack. Done for you, they offer implementation services, and done for you software development services. They do that for, like, very large businesses oftentimes that have the capital to invest. But sometimes they also have their own partners, sometimes that they even have acquired, like part of the Esri division. I know that there's one in Canada, for example, Ratio.city. And they generate revenue with them by just, well, essentially helping them sell the solution that Esri has been selling for years, but like just selling GIS solution to municipalities, to developers, planners, and more. by doing it in Canada across this vertical. I do think that this video should go up in terms of VSL, so there's my DIY solution. But basically, Esri is already in this niche, right? A division of Esri Canada. They're already doing it, or they had already been doing it. Ratio City potentially was a competitor or a reseller, and they acquired them. Boom, now they're essentially a done-for-you solution for the founder of Ratio City, or at least the stakeholders in that, while providing a done with you or done for you, or DIY, kind of depends, for municipalities, developers, planners, and more. So an example could be, there may be a planner that comes in and they'll think, cool, this all looks nice, I'm quite happy with how this looks, and they can onboard them as a client by just having them like buy the solution for the website. I think they can actually do that. I'm not even 100% sure. Pricing, cool, yeah, I can purchase right here. See where that goes. Yeah, I can just purchase right away. At least I'm assuming. I'll get a quote and I can accept it. That's what I could do as a planner. So that's a DIY solution. But what's interesting is that a lot of these businesses and municipalities and developers and planners, they will need like some type of onboarding, right? So there we go, asset management. Perfect example once again. We're back with that. They'll probably know training materials that these municipalities and planners don't want to actually do everything themselves in many cases, unless they've already been educated on GIS and geospatial in their education. This is the more interesting part of things, where they'll need like some type of consulting, or maybe even like done for you services. Here though, there's training materials where I can just do things and learn things for free, DIY. But I could probably get like an onboarding as a municipality, where I get all of this in one afternoon, where somebody on their team comes to them, to their municipality, and explains them exactly how things work, like boom, 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 boom. And then this is no longer needed. The learning curve is less high because I can ask questions like right away on the spot as the planner that is using the solution. Done with you. And other thing I could do is two things basically in the done for you side actually. I could help them or ask them to customize my entire platform to me as a planner or as a municipality, by saying like, hey, we need X, Y, and Z handled whenever like requests come in. We want the automation implemented for that. Can you build this new feature into the software? Sure, we think we can do that. That's what Ratio City will say, right? And they'll say, we'll just send you a quote. It will be like 5K, 10K, 50K to create X feature. And that way you can automate X, Y, and Z, whatever, right? Or you can now do X, Y, and Z, manage X, Y, and Z, do whatever, right? And they'll think, okay, cool, we'll authorize the payment, and they'll start doing software development, because chances are Ratio City has software developers on their team, or they'll outsource it to the Esri division, right? Or they are the Esri division, but they'll outsource it to Esri, who is actually the core platform provider. And what they'll most likely do, if they're very smart, is they'll sell that feature. Esri will sell that feature to any other vertical where they also have clients in. Ratio City will potentially even sell that same feature to multiple of these businesses, all to tell them like, hey, for this feature we need X amount of investment for you. We actually go half and half with you on the cost. Sure, you can do that. Next thing you know, some municipality wants that feature, a developer wants that feature too. Boom, they say the same thing to them. We'll go half and half with you on the cost. So let's say the feature costs 50K. They let the municipality pay 25K, the developer pay 25K. And maybe Esri is smart enough to have some type of other vertical that they're selling the geospatial solution to, like the core GIS platform to. And they'll be like, sure, we can build it for you for 25k, right? And now Esri and Ratio City, let's say it's the same business in this case, has made 75k for a solution that cost them 50k to make. And what can they do now? They can market that solution and sell it as an upsell on their platform, or put that into like a higher tier pricing for all of the other municipalities they have, all of the other developers, of the other planners. Boom, immediately revenue goes up. And this is very important because clients will ask you to develop stuff, or they will ask for multiple things, like they want more components to solve their problem, because ultimately what you're doing and what they want to get out of your solution is they want some type of gap to be bridged, right? And I think that's kind of obvious, but cool. Let's say this is the thing. We need some type of gap to be bridged. Essentially, we want to bridge some type of gap, right? So let's say this is the gap. Boom, boom. Oh my god. The gap is not this flat. Let me retry that. Alright, whatever. Prospect wants to go from current situation to desired situation. And the way we can bridge that gap depends on where in the buying stage, or just in the business stage, the prospect is. Let's say the prospect is in a DIY type of business, or has a very large business, and they actually have a lot of data scientists on their team. They may not need your solution at its core, or they only want the information and they don't necessarily need implementation because they can do that themselves, or they want to do that themselves, or they just happen to be like not problem aware yet, and you need to make them problem aware by educating them, and that can be the DIY solution. In other words, this can be like an introduction to GIS, introduction to your software solution, right? And the gap you're then bridging is from current situation, I don't know about GIS yet, to desired situation, I want to know about GIS. Because chances are a housing corporation, or to be honest, like any type of organization, they've heard about GIS, they've maybe even seen it to an extent in like their intern, some intern that came across and was talking about their studies, whatever, right? They've heard about GIS or some sort of software, and they were like, cool, we need to at least know what that's looking like, so that we know maybe later down the line if we need to implement that with the done with you solution. Actually put that there, implementation, or if we want full service implementation, where this could be like a little deeper of a solution. In other words, like actual GIS support for every single layer. Implementation can be like build and release. This is what a lot of big consultancies companies do. I do it in my business actually. We build and release marketing infrastructures. But what a lot of software businesses will do is they build and release software, obviously, a software build. So for example, a asset management software, they may come into a housing corporation or some type of like construction company, and they'll have, or the construction company or the housing corporation will have some type of data team, but they're not familiar with geospatial yet, or the type of software that this particular provider has yet. So they will do an onboarding, tie the solution to their needs to a particular extent for the first month, for an onboarding or like 3 sessions, whatever, and then they'll release it, and they'll just do like regular service level support, where it's like surface level support, where it's like you can call us whenever your data is down or you have any questions, we can redirect you to the documentation. Or we can, well, essentially fulfill done for you. Full service implementation can also be software development whenever new features are requested, right? So this can be like build and release. And the way I like to think of build and release in software solutions is like an onboarding and then small retainer fee after, because, well, you're paying for the software and using it, right? It's not free either. AI can be also like a very important component in that. That's how we do the build and release infrastructures for marketing. We use AI as a triager, I don't know how to pronounce properly, triager. Boom, opt-in comes in, AI will call them, or AI will WhatsApp or SMS them. They get a reply, hopefully from the prospect that opted in for, let's say, a demo or a sales call. And the triager will look at where in the buying stage is this prospect, DIY done with you, done for you, and they'll place the offer in front of them that makes sense at that particular buying stage. So for example, a qualifying question could be like, hey, how much do you have to invest into X, Y, and Z at this current moment in time? They'll give you a particular solution. You can also ask that question in a different way whenever you are selling a software solution, like how much are you currently spending on software solutions? How much are you already implementing GIS of some sort? Do you have a mapping application? And that can also be interesting questions, right? That way you can qualify where the prospect is in the buyer journey. And basically, the way you can think of DIY, done with you and done for you, is also, and here comes another interesting part, making somebody problem aware, making them solution aware, and making them product aware. And that's like very high level, the way that I'm currently describing it. Problem aware, solution aware, product aware, but it makes sense. Just bear with me. If I want to educate the prospect on the software solution, I need to have some type of DIY offer. It can even be like a free thing, right? Like free course, free open day, free documentation, lead magnet, case study. Can all be all sorts of DIY solutions that make them problem aware, because now they find out what the GIS solution looks like, for example, because this can be a course. Essentially what this is a course or some type of training material, or a book like Alex Ramosi did, right? He sells people a book. And then as he sells them the book or course or whatever, he tries to funnel qualified prospects into the workshop. Because if I was to go here, let's say attend a workshop, I may say I'm ready to scale. What happens? I opt in. Chances are I can actually book a call right away. And what they will do on the call is they'll qualify me, see if I can indeed join their business as a, or join their workshop as a business. And they'll say, cool, this guy can indeed scale his business. He's qualified for our solution. He has enough capital to invest. Then they'll do this. Otherwise, they may downsell me and think like, okay, dude, you cannot afford this right now, or you're just not a fit right now, but you can go and consume this other material. Like, for example, we have this book, and that may help you at this current stage in your journey, and then you'll make some money and try apply for the next workshop, right? That way, they're not hard selling somebody on something that they cannot afford, but at the same time, they are nurturing somebody still. So they're not losing the lead, rather they're selling them something else or giving them something else to qualify them later down the line. Also known as the 3% rule. 3% of the people in your audience may qualify for X offer, but since you have multiple offers across multiple stages of the buyer journey, you actually have multiple things to nurture them for different offers. So chances are, let's say you have your qualified market, your qualified target audience, roughly 30% will be here, roughly 30% will be here, roughly 30% will be here. But there's also the stages in between, right? Anyhow, That's problem awareness. We make them aware of what their problem is at this moment, and maybe that can be the implementation, because indeed they do need this. Maybe that's not the implementation just yet, and they will need more course and training material before the implementation as a build and release system becomes relevant for, let's say, their asset management solution or whatever, right? That's solution awareness, because now they know, cool, this implementation is what I need, I'll buy it. And sure, this can be a product as well, so there's even like little micro stages from problem to product aware, but let's not overcomplicate it here. This is like the high level problem, solution, and product aware, because ultimately this can be your product. This to an extent is a mini product, and this is also a mini product, but you'll probably make most revenue on this, or this. What a lot of software businesses do is they'll have micro services, or they'll have other businesses they acquired across this full stack. And what they can then do is have people be trained on their solution and make revenue off of it. Esri does this very, very smart. The way they do this is they have all of the industries and they have all of these products, right? And they can sell these products as standalone softwares, but they can also sell the training required for these softwares. They'll sell their software to a university. Boom, can be this, can be this. Chances are they'll even have them pay not just for the software, but for the training to be able to give the training, if that makes sense. So the lecturer will have to be able to provide the perfect solution or the perfect explanation on how GIS works. And they'll sell the courses and the training material sometimes. So they can make revenue across all of these different components. Some universities may even want extra software development to have like a simpler UI, UX for their students, whatever, right? So even for just Esri for universities, and then I'm not even talking about all of the different verticals that they're selling this in as well, because obviously for each university course you can have different solutions and different courses as well for just Esri products. They make revenue off of these people. So they're making revenue off the course and training material and the software at the same time. And while they do that, they're also educating their future target audience to be able to buy the Done With You service. Because now some human geography or spatial planning student like myself will be educated on the DIY solution, and from there they will start working 2 or 3 years down the line. Where are they going to go to after they know, like, cool, somebody helped us on the course or on the training material? Where are they going to go to? Boom, back to Esri, because they knew, or at least they remember, the course that they had in high school or in college, usually university, and they'll be able to tell, like, these were the guys that helped me when I had to do this GIS thing the previous time. Now that I feel like I need it again, those were the guys that did it, right? It was ArcGIS. I'm going to use ArcGIS. Personally a fan of QGIS, but that's besides the point. That's what will happen. The implementation will then be delivered by most likely Esri and their team, or a reseller, a partner of Esri. Because what will they look for? Will they look for ArcGIS, because that's what they had in college? Or will they search for QGIS? Or will they search for any other type of GIS system? All the types of GIS system? No, they won't even ask about what the other types of GIS systems are, because they know this works, right? So, very interesting thing as well. Courses and training material. As far as Done With You solutions go, the build and release is done with Esri. However, there's also the Done For You component of everything, right? They can always ask Esri to do even more, because now they've already got their solution. That's the GIS platform they opted for using. They need more features, or they've got some type of new 3D feature that they wanted in their software, or more explanation. Maybe they'll get even more training material, right? So Esri is making a lot of money across this entire value stack, which is crazy. Like, it's super smart of a business model, and they've probably planned it out this way. Who knows? Have they really thought about the awareness levels, or necessarily like this upsell cross-sell structure? Or did they just want to make revenue in as many markets as possible? I don't know, but this is what they do, right? So even if you're just making software, you can always add consulting. Why not add it? Like if your profit margins, if you offer it for high enough of a margin, and you just have it on your website, some type of simple landing page that you can redirect people to make that offer with the right margins, because you've already thought of this previously before you got any type of client that's going to ask you for it. You can make a lot of revenue without even necessarily having to think about it. Even if most of your revenue at this moment may be about build and release, later down the line, new season of entrepreneurship comes across the table, because now you're thinking about scaling your business. Maybe done-for-you services become relevant, because you also need to make revenue in different ways when this is no longer scalable. That's not to say that this necessarily can no longer be scalable, but even with build and release, there's going to be a done-for-you component to it and a DIY component to it. So you may want to expand or think of ways to increase the LTV. So you need to be a little bit creative, but I think this gives you a framework to essentially be creative in the retention part of working in geospatial or any type of software solution provision. Now, the interesting thing about this whole current situation, desired situation thing, is that it applies across the value stack. Again, and realistically, it doesn't just apply across the value stack, it applies in between these situations, right? Because I don't necessarily have a reason to buy your done with you solution after I've just got a course in university. Like I'm not the very first thing that's going to happen is not me thinking, oh, I want to have a done with you solution now. But maybe a few months down the line it will, because I will think, hey, I need an internship. Cool, you can come work at Esri. Or I will think, hey, I need X amount of geospatial application because I now work in the actual work field and I have to think about X, Y, and Z. Cool, we can do it done with you. Onboarding, we can implement the software and build it to your needs and release it. That's what Esri will do. So, in the mind of the prospect, you need to bridge the gap in between these solutions. Let's actually make it slightly simpler again by removing all of this and say, cool, you now want to go from somebody who knows what GIS is to having GIS implemented in your organization. Then this is the gap I want to create and communicate to the prospect. This requires some thought, but this is what you want to do. Because if you're talking to, let's say, any type of prospect, you want to make sure that they're qualified for the thing that you're offering. But maybe you'll find they hopped on a call and you kind of expected them to be interested in you implementing Esri solutions for them or your software solution for them. But they will say, what even is GIS? Like they're not educated on what your product even is. Sure, no problem. You go back into this whole course and training material thing, and honestly, their current situation is them even before this. They won't even know about your solution. They won't even know who you are. They won't even know what you do. Then it's like, okay, cool. You can just watch my YouTube videos. You can just watch my whatever. You can just look at this course. We have this documentation right here, which explains whatever. We have our flyer. They need some type of course training or education material. And don't just think of this as like, okay, we need to go to universities and offer courses, or I need to build courses. You also can think of just a simple way, right? Because maybe your prospect at this stage, they won't follow like an 8-hour course because they hardly even know what you do, but they may be interested in just simple flyer. And that's also education. Marketing is education. So marketing is just educating people on what their current stage is, what the next stage is, and what is required to bridge that gap. And essentially what usually in the ideal situation is required to bridge that gap is them paying you money. Simple, right? And sure, they can do it themselves technically, but a good offer is when the only decision the prospect has to make money is to buy from you. Because ultimately what people are doing with GIS solutions is they want to make more money, and that's completely fine. Or they just want to save more time, get more freedom, but the only way they can get that is buying from you. That should be like the story. That should be this gap to bridge. You know exactly how to bridge that gap. Implementation, build and release. Next one, current situation, desired situation. We have an implementation for build and release. Maybe we've already built and released their solution, and they'll ask about a new feature. What will I do? I'll tell them like, cool, I understand you want this new feature. Currently, we do not offer this feature. It will cost the engineers a couple of hours or days to make this feature. So, to bridge this issue, or to actually get you that feature, why do you want that feature, right? Like, what would that do for you? Like, why do you need that feature? I'll have to find out why. Okay, currently you don't have an integration for a 3D feature, but you want a 3D feature. Cool. Why do you want a 3D feature? Yeah, we think we'll be working more efficiently because we can actually look at the situation around the block, and we will find out that there's a lot of space or not, and that way we don't have to actually go to the site, because we know from the 3D scenery if there is enough space to actually put our machinery there, whatever it be, right? Or to put solar panels on that roof or whatever, right? Cool. I understand that that would be like an ideal situation, because now you don't actually have to go to this site. How many times a week do you actually go to this site? Yeah, so usually we have like a project every other month, and it will require us 2 or 3 drives to the site. Usually it's like 1 or 2 hours away to actually go there and find this information. Whereas if we had a 3D viewer, we wouldn't have actually have to think about it, right? Cool. You have your 3D viewer, you have your current situation, you have your desired situation. They understand that if they have this 3D feature, they won't have to go and spend like half a day driving somewhere and driving back to get the information on if their machinery is fitting, to measure that up, because they can now save a lot of time and money, right? Cool. We have clarified that their current situation is they have to drive somewhere half a day every single month. Desired situation, they don't have to do that. They can just open the software and see it right away. Cool. Now we have some type of value proposition. I'll tell them, cool. So right now you're actually traveling back and forth every month. Takes you half a day. One of your surveyors is going there. Takes them half a day. So you're probably paying them like $90 an hour, $50 an hour. Costs you $200 per month. And you may have to do that across a couple of projects. I'll do the math. That's like $2,400 a month. Oh, sorry, $2,400 a year per surveyor per project. Cool. So building this 3D feature for you would save you like X amount of revenue. Let's say there's 10 projects a month. There's 42K per year that you could save if we implemented this 3D feature. Well, making this 3D feature will cost probably like about 5K. Oh, that's just 8%, right? Not sure if I got the math right there. 12.5%, I think. 5K on the 40K, right? 12.5%. Still not entirely sure. Hold up. Let me do the math. Without ChatGPT, no. Good thing we do have calculators in our pockets and on our screens. 40 divided by 5 is 8 times 100. Sorry, that's the wrong math. It's 5 divided by 40 times 100. 12.5%. There we go. Cool, my math is not that bad. So we'll only charge 12.5% of the time we can actually save you. Boom, no-brainer offer. Sure, of course you can have 10K, 12K, you can have 20K if you save me 40K. Of course, anytime. Now I, as the service provider of the software or the software developer, I'll be like, cool. This is a very valid problem. We just made 20K, and we made our client, by doing that, another 20K. But we have probably got more clients who have the same problem that they're facing. What will I do? I'll go to all of the other exact similar clients and ask them like, hey, we've actually heard from the market, from other clients, businesses just like yours, that this is a problem that's currently in the market, right? This is a problem that they currently have. Is that also something that you have? Boom. Now I can ask that to 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses, sell the exact same solution to a couple of them, and I'll make a profit on the software development. And I'll not just make the profit on doing the software development one time, but also take for you can't take this for granted, but make that profit margin an infinite amount of times, because I'm now selling it to 5 different surveyors. And maybe you want to be a little fair on them, because it's like, hey, of course we can then sell the solution to 10 businesses just like you, so we'll only charge you 10%, 20%, 5% of the actual time it saves you, but that's the value we then provide. Cool, awesome. And you'll make the profit margins on the software development, and you'll then not just make the 80% that you probably make on like a couple of days of software development in terms of profit margins, but you also then do that times 5, and those are all profit margins at 100% rate. So you productize the solution of software development for one client, 80% margins, second client 100% margin, third client 100% margin, fourth, fifth, sixth, all 100% margins. So you're basically increasing your margins by a lot, because it's now not just 80% on one solution, but it's on 5 solutions, the 20% on that one solution. So it's like 1/5 times 1/5 times 1/5 times 1/5 times 1/5. It's basically nothing. It's just pure revenue, pure profit, right? Because you're providing essentially a build and release or an implementation that can be replicated as a full service implementation or as software development, and making a lot of profit. And there's nothing wrong with that, unless somebody else can do it cheaper. And that's where you need to do the math, the real math, right? You need to figure out what's fair. But usually if you've already done the build and release, they're already in your ecosystem. This is also something Esri does. It's like the vendor lock-in. If you want to build more software, unless you're on some type of open source component, you have to pay more. You have to pay even more to us, because we're the software developer, right? Like, we're the provider of that software. Doesn't mean you have to have the right clients who can actually want to pay for that. If they don't, then, well, you may just stick to a build and release. They may not be fully satisfied, and the software development is not enough. That is a hard way to kind of weigh the skills, but as I just described how you can actually quantify in a prospect's mind what the value of your software development solution is, it's easy. It's easy, because now the offer is just a way to bridge the gap. X amount of money can be made by saving it, and that only costs a percentage of it. It's like, okay, well, fair, right? If I provide a build and release solution for web development, outbound, or any type of marketing infrastructure, it's like, cool. If we do X, Y, and Z, it's probably very reasonable. We generate you X, Y, and Z, and then we take a percentage of that, so your cost will be 10% of that, 20% of that. Oh, well, sure, easy, right? It's like an easy close, because now it's like, if I just pay 10% of what the fee is that I can save, or the time I can save, or the money I can save, no brainer. That's what essentially we want to do. And I think that's been the video. I don't think I have anything else to say. It's like, this is very interesting. You can make money across the value stack. Done for you, done with you, DIY. And you can just focus on one while you're scaling your business by trying to generate more revenue in one. But you never want to completely isolate your entire marketing budget or your entire product budget into one, because educating your prospects, in other words, marketing, and potentially product development for courses, very lucrative, by the way, like info products, is still required to sell your software development services, or to just sell your software implementation services, because people are not going to buy your software implementation service if they don't know what they don't know, which is why it's valuable. Hope that's been a valuable video. Back on the software videos again. It's been a while, because I actually made this mistake myself, where I was selling a done-for-you solution at way too little margin and doing all of the fulfillment myself. So I won't make that mistake again. But from now on, we'll probably try and be give some more consistency on this whole video thing, because for me it's the same thing, right? It's like, I'm trying to create courses, training material, education material, to teach you why my marketing infrastructures are going to work, and to then potentially give you a full service implementation where my margins may be even bigger, but you also may bridge the gap between a current and a desired situation. And the beautiful thing about that business is everyone just takes a percentage, right? So it's not a zero-sum game, because I can convince you, if I do the math right and it's actually accurate, that it just takes you 20% off X budget to make something work, that you make even more of a profit, and otherwise we'll have a guarantee to make it, and you just pay 20% of whatever I then make you, because I have a leveraged business model. And that's the beauty of business, right? There's no zero-sum game. There's not like anyone necessarily being exploited. You make money, I make money, I have margins, you have probably even better margins based on what I do. I love capitalism, man. Anyhow, I'll see you guys in another video. If you happen to want to learn more about this, or how I can help with this, especially with the build and release infrastructure, maybe with helping you build info products or a full service implementation, you can book a call on the website locadixmarketing.com or locadix.io. Link will be in the description. Appreciate it, and bye-bye.